Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. Y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz. Joining me from New Zealand, Dylan Williamson. How's it going?
Doing good, Nate. Good morning.
Good evening. We've had a fun slate of games over this past week. Unfortunately, we did not plan to talk about those games because we came up with another more amusing idea, and that is award season is coming up, and there is like standard practice of we choose awards based on criteria X or Y or Z or Z if you're a Canadian listener. But what if we could come up with some other ways to award these awards? So we have come up with 11 different categories and who would win MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, and Rookie of the Year based on the 11 categories. Dylan, do you want to go over the categories or do you want to just let them come up as pleasant surprises?
Yeah, let's let them come up as a surprise. It's perfect blog boy fashion that we've got all these really interesting games. The ant block for the one of the greatest blocks of all time, and we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
come on here and not talk about any games, in true blog boy fashion. But yeah, so basically the idea for this format was, there are a lot of different ways that people try to define these ambiguously defined awards, and so what we're doing today is very, very narrowly defining these awards into 11 categories and seeing what weird and wonderful things we come up with, but then also how that can maybe inform the our true pick and what takeaways we can have based on that.
And I will say, I did try to come up with as many different candidates as possible for the awards based on these categories. So let's jump right into it. For MVP, we have just the standard, kind of the colloquial defined, who do you think is going to be MVP? And I think we're probably in agreement here that's going to be Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you went there. It doesn't seem like there is maybe a favorite since Embiid went down, and so I'm glad that we're on the same page after you claimed that we were. Um, yeah, I think Nikola Jokic has been the best player so far this season. When you're excluding those, that great 40 game stretch from Joel Embiid, and so he's my pick this year as he was last year, and will be every year in perpetuity.
Yes. And while MVP is probably the most popular award, getting these standards and some of the more obvious cases out of the way for MVP is going to make Rookie of the Year or DPOY or MIP more fun. So the second category we have is Best Player, Best Team, which I believe we will agree again upon is Jason Tatum.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how many of the voters do default this way, without maybe a clear runaway pick. We've seen in the past that a lot of times, this has really been you know, the tiebreaker, or the sort of go-to criteria. And I bet that there are going to be a lot of people making a Jason Tatum case. I won't be one of them. He'd be probably not even my top three. But if we're talking team success, basketball is a team game. The point is to win games, and Jason Tatum has been the biggest contributor on the best team in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. No real qualms there. So our third category is just the best player in the league. This is kind of the like where we've messed up MVP over the last several years. And we started wanting to have these other interesting cases where it's like we should just give it always to Michael Jordan. We should always give it to LeBron James. Who is the best player in the NBA right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, and this is like more of a maybe even more of like an eye test kind of thing of, not factoring into maybe wins and losses, not so much factoring into advanced stats,
Mm-hmm.
just looking at you tune into a game, who looks like the best player on the floor. Um, it would be easy to say Jokic, but I'm gonna zag a little bit and try to bring in another guy and say Luka Doncic. Some of his performances that we've seen this year, um, and just looking at tuning into a random game and just seeing what this guy is doing, the impact that he's having on his team. He's going to be my pick for this narrow category.
I went pretty chalk here. I went with Nikola Jokic again. I mean, what he can do inside, outside. If we're just talking the best player in basketball right now, I think without a doubt it is Jokic for the playmaking, the scoring, the passing, and the improved defensive energy and intensity, which I still don't think Luka Doncic has. So I'm going for the best player. It's Jokic.
Good call. Like I say.
Yeah. In a very similar category, our fourth category is the most skilled player right here. I am again taking Jokic. I think he has the widest variety of skills, but I did at least consider Kawhi Leonard. Did you go with
Mm.
anybody different?
No, I went with Jokic. I do like the Kawhi pick of just, maybe trying to incorporate a little bit more of maybe some defense, maybe some shot making. But Jokic's all-round game, I think, is pretty hard to overcome.
Yeah, when we first came up with this category, I was thinking of it like bag, like who had the deepest bag, and Jokic
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
has the most versatility. But then as I thought about more, I was thinking, well, maybe bag is versatility, maybe bag is two-way impact. And so I kind of waffled for a minute before sticking with Jokic. So this
Yeah.
is
It's
we're
it's
pretty
almost
standard
like
there.
it's almost like this is like the casuals award, like if you only watch highlights and you're like, come on, look at the way this guy's playing. But I
Yeah,
think even then Jokic is probably the guy.
yeah. I am taking Luka Doncic for the fifth category, which we have as carrying his team. I think I mean, as far as you just look at statistical input output, there are some on-off numbers that are shaky for Luca, but I feel like he is doing the most with the least. I also considered Kevin Durant. Where'd you go here for the carrying his team section?
Yeah, those are two guys that I considered, and then obviously Nikola Jokic as well. I wanted to bring up SGA.
Hmm.
Um, Best team in the West. I think he's
Yep.
clearly the number one guy. He's the only guy that would be even, in consideration for an All-Star or, All NBA
Yeah,
type spot on his team.
I would push back on that a little bit. I felt like Chet and J Dub, if they were in the East, could have been all stars. I
Yeah,
mean, like
no,
the West was so stacked. Carl Anthony Towns was kind of your like, how did this guy get in an All Star? But like the East had some spots that one of those two guys should have gotten in my mind.
yeah. I just think that with how good the Thunder have been this year, and like a lot of that is defense, but they're also a top five offensive team, and SGA is the clear driving force behind that. I think if you take him off this team, I think they are um, Detroit Pistons esque.
Yeah. All right. Now we get into some interesting ones. And these are what I kind of call the Allen Iverson categories, and I had to split them up. So we have pound for pound and inch for inch. Pound for pound, I went with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander as my MVP. He is averaging, let me grab this number here. He is averaging one statistical output, talking point, rebound, block, steal, or assist for every 4 pounds that he weighs. No other players is getting that close in the per game numbers to weight ratio.
You went scientific. You went so scientific on this. And we just had the doing the most with the least, as in the most with the least teammates or help around you.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got them doing the most with the least muscle. And SGA was my pick as well. A top three legitimate MVP caliber kind of player, and at 195 pounds, he's listed at. Um,
Ooh.
a, a little bit of a difference between him and Jokic. Did you have a different weight measure?
I had a different weight measurement. I had 180 from Basketball Reference, which
Uh,
is a
it, it,
very well, it's a sizable difference. You put him up to 195, and now he's no longer winning the weight category. Now the weight category
oh,
goes to Luka Doncic. But what's your weight on Luka?
what? Really?
Yeah, I don't think I think that these were very
245?
generous weighings for a lot of these guys. Did you say 225?
245.
Okay. Yeah, I had Basketball Reference had him at 230, so I think they're being generous on both the weights. If you drop
No,
Luca,
230 seems legit.
I don't know, 245 came in a little heavy.
Muscle weighs more than fat. He's like Kawhi's like 230. Like he's a similar size to Kawhi, but
All right,
almost not.
if we give him 235, it's Shea again. So we kind of split the difference. We're sticking with Shea on the height to weight ratio, but or weight to stats ratio. Oh, here. For height, for the inch for inch, actually, it is Luka Doncic who is
Huh.
recording 0.7 statistical impressions per inch. So for every inch you're getting 7/10 of a steal, block, assist, rebound, or point, which was a pretty sizable advantage over a lot of the other guys. I trust his height being at 6'7".
Yeah, and I went with obviously a non-scientific perspective, but the guy I came up with was 6'3" Donovan Mitchell, who I think that 6'3" may even be a little bit generous, but he's having a really excellent season and the only guy around this height who has really impacted winning as much as he has.
Yeah, I think if you call him more of a 6'1", then that's probably a bit more accurate. Like 6'3" is generous. I thought about Jalen Brunson going with the
Yeah,
unscientific route, but I was like, let me just get some science in here. Let me do some fourth grade division. Be really cool here. So that's what I came up with for the height and weight
yeah.
for
I
these.
love that. I love that you and I have changed roles here. It's normally me coming in with the unnecessarily specific, statistically verifiable definitions. And this time I'm going the old-fashioned, eyeballing and making shit up route.
It's a good route to go. All right. So now we have the cumulative category, which is just everything combined. And what do you got?
Yeah, so how many games do you play? How many minutes do you play? What is the total value added up that you've got? And I think it's pretty obvious it's still Jokic. He's played 62 out of his team's 64 games and plays over 34 minutes a game. So he's providing a lot of value, and then he plays pretty much all the time.
I thought about Jokic, but I once again went the scientific route. I totaled up all of the statistical impressions, points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, and as of Saturday, when I did all of this, Luka or Giannis Antetokounmpo, 3,090
Wow.
to Jokic's 3,027. Also, Luka in there with 3,047. Big thing is that he has not played quite as much. So the cumulative total, I am giving it to Giannis.
Interesting. I mean, if you factor in how unimpressive some of those statistical impressions have been in terms of
Nope.
wins and losses.
No, we don't need to do that.
Okay. Since we're going scientific here, let's tweak the formula. Why don't we go statistical impressions multiplied by net rating for the power of 1 plus on-off net rating, to give some weight to some winning here.
Who cares about winnings? We just wanted the cumulative total of this man's output, and I've got Giannis. That's
All right.
so
All
our
right. I'll,
categories
I'll
thus far.
I'll take the real MVP who's only missed 2 games and plays 34 minutes a game.
You do whatever the hell you want. This is your imaginary ballot. We'll see if the NBA ever gives us anything. I don't think they ever would, especially after hearing this. But just for the listeners keeping track at home, we've had the standard case. We've had best player, best team. We've had best overall player in the league. We've had most skilled or deepest bag. Interpret that as you will. We've got the guy who's responsible for carrying his team, pound for pound, inch for inch, cumulative, and now we're about to have per minute. So, who is your MVP by minutes?
This is where I went back to Embiid. We talked about the excellent season that he had before
Yeah.
going down with injury. If you only factor in the games that he played and the minutes that he played, I think he's the MVP.
Yep. If we're just looking about what he did, I did briefly consider John Morant out here, but couldn't
Yeah,
quite get
yeah.
there. He's 9 games, good 9 games. Category number 10, we have by age. I'm interested to see what you did with this. Did you think that LeBron, age 39 season is more impressive, or Victor Wembanyama, who just turned 20 in January, more impressive?
I went with the old man.
Yeah.
Um,
It's it's the greatest season by anyone of this age by a long shot. Victor Wembanyama, amazing rookie season, comparable to other rookies though.
yeah, for sure. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the pod or even mentioned it to you, but I was, I involuntarily tell NBA information to my girlfriend, and one of the things I was telling her was about how many seasons LeBron's played and his age, and it literally blew her mind that this man was almost 40 and he's still this good.
Yeah.
From someone who doesn't know very much about NBA, doesn't follow NBA, the fact that this man is this good at this age, even to her, was just outrageous.
My wife is kind of the opposite, and I think that this happens when you start getting to be this old. So we're both 31 right now, but and she's like, we were discussing Anthony Edwards. I'm like, yeah, he's 22, and she's like, man, he's that young and doing all of this. This one, we're like, yeah, it's kind of standard. We're getting up there. Like, there are young people who do really impressive things. So
Yeah,
it's,
maybe still being in our 20s, being 40 years old is just unfathomable to us. We're like, wow, you can still walk at that age?
I mean, I'm 31. I don't know how much longer I'll be walking. The knees creak, the back
Oh,
aches. It's pretty rough here. But that's MVP by age. Then we have an unconventional category, which I tried to nail you down a little bit more on, like, what does this mean? And you just said unconventional. So I'm calling this the wild card. I want to know who you came up with.
hmm. So what I went with was Rudy Gobert. The Minnesota Timberwolves have been an excellent team this season. He's the biggest reason that they have been an excellent team. And the reason that he's done it is because his defense is so impactful. And as we all know, but don't like to recognize, defense is half of basketball. And when you consider the
Yeah.
defensive impact that this man has, it's comparable to some of these, to your Lucas and your Jokic's and Shea's in terms of what they can do on offense. And he does still contribute offensively. So my unconventional MVP pick is Rudy Gobert, based on the fact that he's won his team all of these games, but he's done it with defense.
It is a well stated case. My unconventional MVP pick is going to be Domantas Sabonis because he's leading the league in triple doubles. And when have we ever seen that go wrong for choosing an MVP? He is currently 10th all time in triple doubles in a single season and still has like a quarter of the year to go. This man could be putting up a top 5 triple double season. What more do you want from an MVP? Winning? No. Triple doubles. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, filling up the box score, contributing in 3 different ways.
Yep. Defense not being one of them.
Only 3.
But that does segue us into Defensive Player of the Year.
Mm.
And for
And
that, we have a wall change, the first ever wall change if you're watching on YouTube. Not
that
as
was
smooth as
incredible.
I had hoped, but
The production quality of this podcast is really, increasing in leaps and bounds.
jumping up a notch. Now we have 3 DPOY jerseys hanging behind me. I'm not sure if you noticed
Mm.
before, but it was 3 MVP
Oh,
jerseys.
ho, ho, ho.
Was the
I'm excited once we get to most improved player for you to bust out some,
some MIP jerseys?
yeah.
You think I don't have them?
You got
Oh, I
3
got.
most improved player jerseys.
I didn't say I had 3.
Okay. You could probably get 2 and then call it a day.
That's generous. Generous. I have 1, but it'll do. All right.
I've
So
got 1 as well. I've got Paul George. I think he was in MIP.
was he MIP? Oh,
I think he was.
DPOY, standard DPOY case,
Mm,
Rudy Gobert, right?
yeah, run away.
Right. Best player, best team. Rudy Gobert is my choice because he is leading the best defense. Did you go different and go with the best overall team and try to nominate Derek White?
Oh, that's spicy. No, I did just do best player on the best defensive team, which is Gobert.
I thought about it. I was like, you know what? This could just be a clean Celtic sweep. If we just do best player, best team across all of these categories, man, who's the most improved Celtic? Who's the rookie of the year for the Celtics? Just best player, best
Jordan
team.
Walsh is rookie of the year.
It could have been, but instead I went with Rudy Gobert here. But I thought that would be a really funny way to look at this.
Yeah. It's interesting too that you pulled Derek White as the best defensive player on the Celtics. I feel like that's not incontroversial.
It probably is controversial. I mean, you could what would you say, Drew Holiday?
No, I mean,
Would you go with Kristaps Porzingis? I don't feel like Kristaps is the best defensive
hmm,
player there, but he maybe fills the biggest defensive role.
yeah, Jason Tatum's probably the conventional pick.
Nah, nah. I mean, Drew is definitely the conventional pick. That man is a defensive legend.
He's not even the best defensive guard on this team.
Yeah, but he's the most storied defensive guard. I don't
That's
know.
true. Your reputation and your track record is incredibly important in terms of people thinking that you're good at defense.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe wasn't good at defense for his last like three defensive player, or all defensive teams. Like he coasted on reputation for a long time.
Yeah.
All right. Best defensive player. I'm interested to see what you went with here.
Um, Obviously, I considered a lot of different guys. I ended up going with Rudy Gobert. Um, Tragically, despite my attempts to try to mix these up, I was like, who is the best defensive player? It's Gobert.
I went with something slightly different here. I feel like Gobert has the biggest statistical output in the regular season, but when I'm just like
Mm,
stripping it
yeah.
away and just saying who is the best defensive player? Who could I have if my team could have one defensive guy and I need one stop? I went with Draymond Green. And I'm not sure that I love that because I also considered a different player for most skilled. And the most skilled, I went with Anthony Davis for the defensive player. I feel like you can flip flop those either one of them as the best all
Mm,
around defender, most skilled defender. I also consider like, is this maybe just like a versatility thing for most skilled? Is it just who can defend the most different positions? In which case, maybe it is Green. But that's kind of where I was thinking for these two is Green and Davis flip flop them either or.
yeah. I do like that actually. That's a good point. You know, when we talk about best player being different from MVP, a lot of times we are talking about guys who maybe don't go all out in the regular season, but do have a lot of
Hmm.
postseason impact. Um, and if you're talking about that case, then I think yeah, then Draymond Green or Anthony Davis are probably the pick.
Did you do something different for most skilled?
I went with OG.
I like that. I considered him as well, just because of the versatility and how many guys he can guard up and down.
Yeah, like probably the one legitimate 1 through 5 defender in the NBA, like that gets thrown around a lot. He's probably the one guy that actually could be the primary assignment on a point guard through center. Um, Solid help defender, you know, um, the statistical impact of Anunoby. I don't know if you've looked at like a lot of like the EPM and even just like raw on off data, but they're saying like when OG is on the floor, you're incredible, and he makes a monumental difference when he's off.
Mhm.
Um, and so there is some data to back up. But yeah, just based on the fact that this guy can really pretty much do it all, um, and guard anyone on the court.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I just wanted to get both Green and Davis in there. And this is
Mhm.
my most diverse category. I've got 10 different players in our 11 different categories here. And you've already heard Gobert for
Nice.
both standard and best defense. So, carrying his team, who do you believe is carrying their defense the most this year?
I went with Jared Allen.
Same.
The Cavs are a really solid defense, and he doesn't have hardly any other defensive talent around him. Like he's got the small backcourt in Mitchell and Garland. Evan Mobley, who's his next best defensive player, has one, missed a lot of games, and two, a lot of his impact is minimized by the fact that he's most of the time playing out of position. Um, and like this dude has Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Max Strus as his starting 1, 2, 3, and the Cavs are an awesome defense. So I went with Jared Allen.
Yeah. I mean, as much as we love Dean Wade, and Dean Wade had that huge game against the Celtics this last week, the thunderous dunk, the multiple threes, was a 20 points on the game, 22 in the game, 20 in the fourth, something like that. Fantastic. Yeah, Allen is like the lone good defender. You're not considering anyone else except for Mobley, who's missed a fair
Mhm.
amount of games
Isaac
for,
Okoro too, but
yeah, Isaac Okoro.
as an on ball guy, and we know that on ball guys alone aren't a lot to
Yeah.
don't contribute a
Uh,
lot to great defense.
I did have a moment of hesitation because they are just 1 point better defensive net rating with him on than with him off. So it wasn't that big of a difference, but I don't care. He's the good defender out there. That's what I'm going with. The Allen Iverson section of defense, pound for pound. Do you have a candidate?
Um, this is a little bit weird because there's so many different weight ratings, but what I pulled was 186 pounds for Alex Caruso.
Yes, sir. That's what I got too. Who from NBA.com, he is contesting 12.4 shots per game, the most by anybody under 200 pounds. Actually, the most by like anybody under like 230. Like
Yeah,
it is impressive. And he's
most by anyone
lowering
that's
them,
not a center.
and he's lowering them by like 5%, 4.6%. So like there is a sizable difference. I've seen some other guys are contesting lots of shots, but aren't making that defensive impact. Caruso is making that defensive impact, and at just 186 pounds.
Yeah, it really is ridiculous the things that he's able to do at this size. Like, as probably the best perimeter help defender in the league. Maybe Derek White could get in on there. Like the master of the dig, the master of the elbow, um, you know, bothering, um, and can guard on ball, can guard players that he shouldn't be able to guard. Like, I watched the Clippers beat the Bulls last night, and he was giving Kawhi trouble just with his quick hands. Like Kawhi's got 50 pounds on this dude and can outmuscle, you know, really big wings, and Caruso was giving him trouble
I
at 186 pounds.
I've really enjoyed kind of the revival of smaller guard defenders going up against bigger players and having successes. Like Boston did it a number of times in that Denver game where they would put Drew Holiday on Jokic and like didn't go great. Not gonna lie to you. Not gonna sit here and tell you that that's the answer to stopping Jokic is guarding him with Drew and having KP come over for the weak side help. But like it's interesting. It's fun. I like seeing it, and it does kind of mess with like, hey, we can't run a pick and roll anymore because then you just switch it, and now we have our like normal matchup. How do we create advantages? So it was entertaining in my mind.
Yeah, and a lot of guys that do guard up, like Drew or like Marcus Smart, those kind of defensive guards, they can do it because they're so strong. Like they're
Mhm.
really well built, low center of gravity, that they're just like hard to move. Whereas Alex Caruso does it just all on like craft.
Yeah, does it on the scrap. All right, then I guess we're in a similar place on inch for inch because at 6'3", I have Chris Dunn. Are we in lockstep?
Interesting. No.
Okay, so let me make the Chris Dunn case then.
Mm,
The man
mm.
is 6'3". He contests 8.1 shots per game, and he lowers opponent's field goal percentage by 6.8, which is the same as Rudy Gobert on overall contests. This man has Rudy Gobert and guards out there.
All right. I went with at 6'6", Draymond Green, who we were
Okay.
just saying is maybe the best defensive player in the league, and at only 3 inches more than like some of these really small guys. Like not a lot of height out there, and incredible defensive value.
I did not put everything in like an inch to contest ratio
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
This one I went on vibes, but I liked it when I saw it. I was like, man, that's a lot of
Yeah.
contest,
Yeah.
and that is a sizable drop.
I did look for a guard as well, and then was considering going like Derek White, but Derek White is 6'4", or I can get Draymond at 6'6". It's like such a small difference for, to get from a, really good defensive player to a defensive player of the year, best defender in the league kind of level.
Yeah, I get it. All right. All right. Then our next category is cumulative. Who do you believe has been cumulatively, or totals wise, the best defensive player?
Um, Back to old reliable, the Stifle Tower has played 62 out of 64 games and plays 34 minutes a game. That's a lot of cumulative value. You look like you're gonna zag, so I'm ready to hear it.
Oh, I'm zigging. I'm zagging. I'm going with Brooke Lopez, who has contested the most shots this year in the NBA. And it wasn't
Mm.
particularly close. It was like over 1,400 hit shots. And I think the next closest was under 1,300. So it was like almost 100 more contests total than anyone else. I might have those numbers slightly off. I'm trying to pull them up now because I didn't note them. But it was an insane advantage in the contests.
Mm. So you went like cumulative, almost like most individual plays, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
cumulative defensive plays.
Okay, so we got it here. Brooke Lopez, as of Sunday, March 10th, has contested 1,422 shots. Rudy Gobert has contested 1,182 shots. That is a 250 shot difference. That's cumulative defensive impact.
I like it.
All right. Then for our per minute defender, who is your DPOY by minutes?
I went back to Caruso for this one. He really just does so much to impact defense, and then but really can't play big minutes. Can't really play starters minutes. Plays with so much that tenacity, that scrappiness that we talked about, that results in fouls, that results in getting gassed. You can't keep it up for 36 minutes a game. And he does obviously miss games with a lot of injuries as well. But if you could take that value and put it into like a 62 game, 34-minute type of player, I think he's got an argument for Defensive Player of the Year.
Sure. Sure. You know who else might have an argument for Defensive Player of the Year?
Joel Embiid.
Jacques Landale. Because on the not even per 36, we're just going to start off with this man is playing 9.1 minutes per game, only 37 games. So there's probably some that he's just getting DMPs, coaches' decisions. But he is contesting 5.1 field goals per 9 minutes it's played. You ramp that up to 36. We're getting in DPOY territory. And he's lowering them by 8.1%. So dropping those field goal percentages from 50 down to 42 or whatnot. But that is more impactful than what we're seeing from Rudy Gobert on a per minute basis. Jacques Landale is your DPOY.
I actually did notice some ridiculous Landale stats because I was looking at just straight defensive on-off, where he lowers his opponent's non-garbage time defensive rating by 12.2 points, which is 99th percentile. Obviously, a very small sample size, whole lot of wacky shit could be going on, but technically speaking, on a per minute basis, his impact is astronomical.
That's what I like to see. That's what my DPOY by minutes is. It's Jacques Landale.
Do you want to know who's? Do you want to know who's right after him in just pure defensive on-off?
Why do I feel like it's going to be someone that's not good at defense?
It is only when he was in Dallas, Seth Curry, who likewise drops opponents' defensive ratings by 12.2 points per 100 possessions when he's on the floor in non-garbage time positions.
Yeah, but he's not getting out there getting the shot contests up. It's clearly Jacques Landale. That's
Yeah.
The Seth Curry stuff is just that's garbage noise. We can't quantify that.
Yeah,
You'd be
that's only
irresponsible.
400 possessions, but Jock Landale and his 200 possessions. Now that's something.
Exactly. All right. By age, is there anyone who stood out to you more than Victor Wembanyama?
Ooh. I once again didn't consider to go young. Um,
Oh, who's the
so
most impressive old defender?
I went old with Brook Lopez, who's 30, about to be 36.
I consider him too.
Hmm.
My
But
thinking was like, once you're old, you're a little bit more established. You can get away with some
hmm,
stuff. Like, so you hit the guy. You've known Tommy Shepard for years, or Tony Brothers, whatever ref's name is. Like, he'll let you slide on that. Victor, the young kid playing good defense, like that's hard. Rookies
yeah,
aren't ready for that.
the only NBA ref's name who I remember is Ben Taylor for obvious reasons.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, no, I mean, what's like a player's peak age? Like 28, probably. So Wemby and Lopez are pretty much splitting the difference there. And I do think that being good at a younger age is more difficult, maybe than just being 7 foot and that doesn't really age. And so yeah, maybe I'll switch mine to Wemby as well. I didn't consider going young.
Yeah. I feel you ramp up quickly in the NBA. Like, if he was 22, 23, wouldn't consider as much. But just as a rookie, I considered him also for MVP. I basically considered him for every one of these things other than MIP because you, you can't be most improved, or can you? Preview for later or as a rookie. But yeah, so that's my DPOY by age is Victor Wembanyama. What is your unconventional pick for Defensive Player of the Year? I want to hear this case.
All right. So my unconventional pick for Defensive Player of the Year is Nikola Jokic. Now, the reason that I went with him is because I think he does actually provide a whole lot of defensive value despite not being a good defensive player. Now, hear
Mm-hmm.
me out. Nuggets really solid defense. Um, Part of the reason they're able to do that is, well, Jokic does do some good things. He's a very good defensive rebounder. He doesn't foul. He's got decent positioning. Like he knows where to be when he's fast enough to get there, which isn't sadly all the time. Now he does have a lot of deficiencies, but where he can also provide defensive value is in two ways, and both of them are by being a all-time great offensive player. The first way is because Jokic is so good on offense, it allows the Nuggets to play more defensive minded players. A guy like Aaron Gordon, who's been, is a really excellent defensive player, wouldn't be able to have the same type of role, the same type of minutes on an average team because of his offensive limitations. KCP is another guy who is shooting a very high percentage of on his threes and can make some cuts and that sort of thing. But we've seen him in places like, Washington, for example, where he wasn't able to have practically any impact because the offense wasn't good enough that he was able to really play meaningful minutes to provide that defensive value. So that's the one argument. The second argument is that because Jokic is so good at offense, the Nuggets have an incredibly high offensive rating, which means that his opponents are playing a relatively high percentage of their positions in the half court, where we know that offenses um, struggle more. And so, because he's so good at offense, there aren't as many transition opportunities because there aren't as many defensive rebounds because they're scoring so often, which means the opponents are playing more on the half court, which drops their offensive rating.
I would also like to add, because he is so efficient offensively, you have to sacrifice some of your own team's offense to play more defensive players, so your offense gets worse by having more good defenders out there. Like you're making that
Yeah,
inverse
yeah.
trade.
Another great point. You've almost got to play two bigs against Jokic, and bigs typically are, particularly if they're defensively capable. There aren't a lot of really good two-way bigs.
Yeah. I went with a similar case, and I call it the Shaq case for Defensive Player of the Year, which the Shaq case, he was second in the year 2000 for DPOY. And I've always said that he wasn't that impactful on defense. He was good on defense, but wasn't super impactful. But the case was that he could put the other team in foul trouble, and that by putting them in foul trouble, they weren't able to play their best players, and they had to go for the second, the third string guys, or they had to have goons out there just to foul Shaq, and so their offense got worse. And so my unconventional pick, although he is already a DPOY, is Giannis Antetokounmpo because he is leading the league in fouls drawn, drawing 8.6 per game. And if
Mm,
you can't have your best players on the court, how are you supposed to have your best offense on the court? And that is defensive value.
I like it. And you run into a similar thing with Jokic, maybe even more extreme because Giannis is like center size, but he's playing the four, and so it really does um, mess with your lineups.
Yeah. I like these unconventional picks. Like, how crazy can we get? Like,
Yeah.
not that Giannis is a crazy pick for Defensive Player of the Year. He's already won it.
Yeah.
But just like, what
These
weird
crazy
cases
picks
can we
like
make?
Giannis for Defensive Player of the Year. um,
Yeah,
I,
just get wild out there.
I would actually like to maybe like do a statistical analysis and see how much truth there is to like a Nikola Jokic Defensive Player of the Year case based on those factors that I brought up, and see like how compared to average, how many more half court positions is the team playing? How much does that actually drop your offensive rating? And compare that to some of these guys who are dropping the other team's offense based on things like rim protection.
Yeah, be interesting to see. Another Jokic defensive stat is he is fifth in the league in deflections, right behind Shea, Matisse Thybulle, Alex Caruso, De'Aaron Fox, and above DeJounte Murray. So like and Kawhi. That's a good cluster aside from De'Aaron Fox mixing there. But like, you want peak defensive value. Those are some peak defensive players.
Yeah. There are some actual defensive arguments. It's not all offensive to his defensive player of the year candidacy.
Yeah. Well then.
Could you imagine how much like the basketball purist old head kind of guys would hate it if like the nerds began a Nikola Jokic for defensive player of the year narrative?
That would give us the inverse of we done with the 90s. That's we done with analytics. We done with stats. This isn't happening. We're done. All right, you want to set up the next category while I change the wall?
All right. One of the hardest, I think, to pick, both from a regular perspective and also based on our 11 categories, is the most improved player of the year. This was one I struggled with, especially to find diversity in. And maybe that's because of the nature of one of the guys who's the favorite. T-Mac was the most improved. Interesting.
I
You learn
believe
something every day.
2003. Tracy McGrady, most improved player. Was it 2002? Let's see here. Oh, 01. Yeah, it jumps from 15.4 points per game to 26.8. That is basically a 12 points per game jump. Goes from, sixth man of the year candidate, third and sixth man of the year, to sixth in MVP. That is a hell of a leap. That's just, I don't know, who are we thinking is going to be like third and sixth man of the year right now? Tim Hardaway Jr. Imagine Tim Hardaway Jr. jump into the MVP conversation next season.
Just looking at the list of most improved, and I realized I do actually have 3 most improved players because Hito Turkoglu and Danny Granger were also a most improved player.
Oh, that's nice. So we have a couple. We've got some representation in the jersey collections for MIPs.
Yeah, we could fill out a wall between us.
Solid.
All right. Did you struggle with diversity in this one?
A little bit.
As in like a lot of the same guy coming up?
I came up with 8 different guys for our 11-man category. But if you really wanted to, I think you could de-diversify them a bit, as it were. But standard, or going with Malik Monk, I think he is probably the favorite. He's just kind of been the best sixth man of the year. Yeah, what he does.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Are we doing 6 man or are we doing most improved?
Oh, yep. Sorry, I jumped over. All right. Yeah, most improved.
Like we're in agreement. Malik Monk was like, "What the hell?"
Looking at the wrong category here.
That's right.
Okay, this one I only had 7 different folks for. Gotta keep my columns straight. Hey, most improved, Kobe White was my pick. Was he your pick for the standard?
I went with Maxi, even though he's been disappointing as of late. I think it's still
I
a
tried to
pretty
tell you.
sizable jump. Mm.
I told you
That
wasn't
that
as
that
good
is
without
true.
Embiid.
I was drinking the
And,
Kool-Aid, and you did call it.
I went with Kobe White. He went from 9.7 points per game to 19.7 points per game. He went from guy who is probably, working his way out of the league or has to take a backup spot to guy who now looks like he could be an all-star. And I just
Mhm.
think that is a huge leap. And he's done it with relatively the same cast around him. Like Levine's been hurt, but it's not like there's been a
Yeah,
sizable
that's
change.
Levine being hurt is probably the biggest contributor to his improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. But there hasn't been like a sizable coaching change or
Mm.
different personnel change that he's thriving off of. It's just been his like increase in performance, and you can kind of see it across the board. Better 2 point percentage, better or 3 point percentage, better or passing, and like all of the numbers are up. So that's my guy for this award at this time.
Yeah, good shit.
Who is your best player, best team category?
But with Jalen Williams, I think he's made a pretty decent jump in terms of his offensive production, and on one of the best teams in the league, playing a big role for that team.
I agree. They are the biggest and most improved team, and so
Hey,
as the most improved record, best player or most improved player, Jalen Williams. Because it felt like it fit.
yeah,
Uh,
no, we go from best player on the best team to best defensive player on best defensive team to most improved player on the most improved team.
that's how this works. Just I know we're not actually planning to talk six man of the year, but my six man of the year, best player, best team. Al Horford, best team, best player, or best six man.
Mm.
All right, best overall. This one was a little bit tricky for me because I was like trying to figure out like who is the like best player that improved. I ended up going with Scotty Barnes. I kind of just looked for like who was in the MIP conversation and like who of them is the best player, who is uh, at the highest level. Well, is that where you went with this?
Yeah, no, I agree that it's the best player who made a sizable jump. You could say like you can make an argument that there is Maxi. I'll probably take Scotty um, over him at this point though.
Yeah,
And so I went with Scotty for the best player who had the most improvement.
yeah. It just made sense. And I also went for him for the most skilled. I feel like he has the largest skill diversity of these guys. So like we're talking about deepest bag or most two-way impact or however you define being the most skilled player in the conversation. That just it felt like Barnes.
Yeah, I went with Scotty narrowly over my guy who I voted as carrying. If you don't have any more to say, I'll say that my most improved player who is most improved and carrying his team, I went with Alfred Şengün, who I also
Ooh.
considered for most skilled.
I didn't think about Şengün. Şengün is much better. I went with Scotty Barnes.
Mm. Yeah, like you could make the case for Scotty as well because like his team really is garbage without him.
Yeah.
The reason I went with Şengün overall is that because Scotty's team is also garbage with him. So like, how much is he carrying? Like, what's the difference between 10 and 20 wins? Um, whereas Şengün actually does have a good team. They are an elite home team, despite not being able to win on the road. And Şengün is a big part of that, and his improvement is a big reason why the Rockets have been so respectable this year.
I don't think we should need to throw too many stones. The Rockets are at 28 wins. The Raptors are at 23. Like,
Okay.
I actually might flip them. I might go with Barnes for carrying because I think he's got less support around him, and
Yeah,
then go for Şengün for the most skilled player in the MIP conversation. Because I do think he
like it.
has a wider array of skills offensively than Barnes. Although Barnes' defense, I have mixed feelings about Barnes' defense because they really tried to run him as point guard Scotty, and he just can't get over screens. It was kind of
Yeah,
it was a failure.
yeah. Like he is strictly a defensive power forward,
Yeah, I mean maybe some
which
threes.
does hurt.
Yeah, less ball handling twos, more like ISO heavy twos. He could probably get, but like
Mm.
he shouldn't chase around point guards. It was a bad option. Um,
Yeah.
the Iverson categories, pound for pound, inch for inch. I went with Tyrese Maxey for both of these. Do you have any uh any deviations?
No, he was my most improved player pick, and he's also a little, he's just a little guy.
Yeah.
Like you could go with Kobe. I don't think there's like a huge size difference between the two of them. So, um, but obviously for me, who went with Maxi overall, there's nothing to detract from that.
You know, if we go by their basketball reference weights, Kobe is 5 pounds lighter. So maybe should be my pound for pound
Yeah,
guy. But
there
height
you go.
wise, Kobe 6'5", Tyrese 6'2", and that's not counting the Kobe white afro. So all right. Pretty standard fare here, pretty easy goings.
Mhm.
Cumulative. I'm interested to see who you got here because this was one of my kind of more spicy picks.
Wow, then I'm really going to be interested. I went with Kobe, who's played, I think, every game this season for his team. And plays 37 minutes a game, so he's just on the floor like all the fucking time.
Hmm.
And didn't play as much last year, and so there's a difference in minutes compared to last year, and there's also a difference in terms of just value that he's able to provide because he plays all the fucking time.
So I ended up going the semi-scientific route on this and totaled all points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals from 2023 and compared it to the current 2024 numbers. And there were a few guys that were higher. We have guys like Cade Cunningham, Karl Anthony Towns, who were hurt last year, and that's why they have this huge totals increase. But for cumulative increase, number 3, the biggest differential is Vince Williams Jr., who hardly played last year. He had 57 total impressions of points, rebounds, blocks, steals, or assists, and now he is over 1,000. That's cumulative growth in my mind.
Yeah, from a two-way guy to a rotation player is a big jump.
He got guaranteed money. He's got a multi-year deal now. This man secured generational wealth this year, and that deserves praise. All right. On the per minute basis, who do you have?
Hmm. This is the one I struggle most with. So give me your one, and I'll see if it inspires me.
My one is very uninspiring. It is Scotty
Okay.
Barnes.
Okay.
And the reason why I went with Scotty, trying to pull up the numbers here, but the reason why I went with Scotty on a per minute its improvement is there is no difference in his minutes. He went from 34.8 minutes to 34.9, and you see him jump from 15 points to 20 points per game. You see his field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage all improve. You see the assist climb, you see the rebounds climb. Yeah, turnovers climb a little bit. Blocks and steals both over 1 and now 1.3 steals, 1.5 blocks. Like everything improved without a minute's improvement. So I think if we're talking about growth in performance versus growth in minutes, very small minutes, very big growth.
Yeah, I like that. I ended up just going with Maxi because he was my pick overall, and you know, I think it provides the most impact um compared to last season and overall. So per minute,
I did also do the thing here where I divided statistical impressions by minutes per game last year versus this year, and there is hella crazy numbers in this of guys just like playing 2 games last year, playing 2 games this year, and having wildly different numbers. But Scotty Barnes is still pretty high up there of having an increase from uh, 0.8 statistical impressions per minute to over 1 0.06 statistical impressions per minute, which doesn't seem like that big, but it is sizable in comparison to a lot of other guys, or in the entire rest of the league, really. He's number 11, even when you look at guys who played one game last year and one game this year, or those kind of skewy small cases. The best of anybody who played more than 32 games.
No, seems legit. I like it.
All right. And that gets us down to improvement by age. Who is your most improved by age?
Now, this one I decided to go with a guy who I think has made a pretty decent improvement, become a maybe fringe sort of all-star, you know, occasional, might get a stray all NBA vote, and has done so at an advanced age compared to where a lot of other guys are making improvements. So I went with Derek White, who has had a terrific season. He's always been a good player, but I feel like he's really jumped to another level this year, and has done that at the age of, with me,
28? 27?
29.
Ah, well, that's perfect, because I'm also going with a 29-year-old. I'm going with Duncan Robinson, who
Oh, yeah.
kind of felt like he was heading towards being out of the league. And this year, it's not just that the numbers have bounced up, but it's the eye test. It's watching him play. It's the fact that he is doing more with the ball. He's doing more playmaking, more off the dribble, less just let me run around, catch and shoot. Let me relocate to the corner, catch and shoot. But like, you can give him the ball and do some screen and roll actions with him. You can let him drive. It's been a noticeable skill development in Duncan Robinson. And at 29, like, I don't know, most guys kind of are what they are at this age. You don't see that leap. And so that's just wanted to shout out Duncan Robinson.
Yeah. The only reason that I didn't go for him before, you could probably make a case for a couple of these sort of most improved. He is a whole lot better than he was last year. Is we don't normally see a lot of consideration given to players who improved after a dip. And I kind of feel like he's gotten back to a level where he had already been in the past and then totally fell off of. And it seems like that's not really something that's considered for most improved player.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys who kind of get it back or figure it out.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
You could for age, you could if we're making that sort of argument, you could go Russell Westbrook as well.
Yeah,
The guy who
that would work.
was also literally almost out of the league, looking like, played his way out of LA, was terrible. Sorry, out of Los Angeles, was terrible. There wasn't a clear path forward for him to ever play again, and then he found a spot and just developed into a really good sixth man.
Play his way out of Los Angeles straight to
And into
LA.
LA. Yeah.
Yep. For those who don't know, the Clippers have called name branding on anything LA, and the Lakers have to be Los Angeles, and that's just how.
Yeah. They are officially the Los Angeles Lakers and the LA Clippers.
Yep. Just fun little tidbit there. Who is your unconventional MIP?
I went with Max Strus.
Okay. I mean, it's an interesting pick. I can see. I mean, he's definitely raised his name notoriety. But what's the statistical case, or what you making here?
It was sort of a role case that he went from the clear fifth guy to the at times number one wing stopper, and also at times the number two offensive option. And so in terms of role, a guy who has climbed up from being at all times last option on the floor in games that he started, a lot of times coming off the bench, and is now a solid starter, playing a role that he hasn't before and succeeding.
Yeah. I mean, the statistical profile almost identical between this year and last year as far as percentages, totals, those points per game, rebound. I mean, it's up in rebounds per game. But like, I didn't fear Max Strus last year. I kind of fear him when he's out there. And Dallas fans definitely fear him after that 62-foot game winner. Maybe they don't fear him. Maybe he just haunts their nightmares. So
Yeah, I mean, he went from 0 60-foot game winners last year to 1 this year. The improvement is astronomical.
absolutely. You know who else had astronomical improvement this year?
Hmm.
Rookie Duop Reith, who is my unconventional pick for
I
MIP.
like it.
At
It's
27 years old, he played in Lebanon last year, in China the 2 years prior. And like we see how guys wash out from the NBA and go to China. We don't see many guys come from China to the NBA. That, in my mind, has got to count for some sort of improvement.
He is the only player in the NBA that I've seen live, because not only did he play in Lebanon and in China, he also played in Australia, where he battled my breakers in the I think in the semifinals.
Was he with I won't pronounce the city name right, but was it the Hawks?
I think he was with the Kings,
Okay.
the Sydney Kings, I believe.
Yeah.
Let me check. No, maybe.
You just don't see that many guys kind of on the cup. You'll see some guys jump over here from Europe.
Yeah,
Like,
no, you were right. It was the Hawks. They played the Hawks in the semifinals and lost to the Kings in the finals.
nice. What's that city name?
Illawarra.
Shout out Illawarra.
Yeah, they've I think they've got another NBA prospect playing for them this year.
Hmm.
I haven't looked into the draft at all, but they've got this. I'm pretty sure it's them that's got the French kid that's
Oh,
going to be a
another
high
French
pick.
kid.
Mm.
What's going on in France? They're cooking in
They
prospects right now.
they really are. Yeah, I went through I just scanned briefly a mock draft to see if there were any other players playing in Australia and New Zealand that were going to be drafted. And one thing that I really noticed as I was going through is they had the nationalities. I was like, man, there are so many freaking French players. There were like 5 or 6 like mocked guys from France.
Yeah. France, hey, they put Boris Dio in charge. And our king of the proletariat, he figured it out.
Yeah.
All right. So that gets us to Rookie of the Year. And I just want to tell you, this is my least diverse board out here. How many of the
Yeah.
categories did you choose someone other than Victor Wembanyama?
1, 2, 3, 4 and a half.
Okay. That's more than me. So
Yeah.
let's run it down. Standard, Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
Best player, best team, Chet Holmgren.
Easily.
All right. The best overall rookie, Victor.
Yeah.
Most skilled, Victor.
Yeah.
Carrying his team. Is this the one that you went for a different guy? Did you go Jaime Jaquez here?
I did not win Victor on this one as well.
Victor Wembanyama same. Pound
Yeah.
for pound, did you go Victor Wembanyama?
Victor's like what 215, so it's hard to get a whole lot lighter and be better. So yeah, Victor on this one as well.
Did you go inch for inch Victor Wembanyama?
This is my first zag. I went with, let me bring up his height because it's,
I believe it's 7'4".
yeah, so you got 7'4" Victor, but I instead went with 6'4" Brandon Pajemski. Now, certainly there's a huge difference in talent and impact between Victor Wembanyama and Brandon Pajemski, but is it an entire foot's worth of difference? Inch for inch, maybe.
So I did the same thing here where I took players' totals. I did total was this time not per game for some reason, but I think it makes nicer numbers, and divided their combined totals of just points, rebounds, and assists. I started with this before I went on to the other team, never came back, and divided it by their total height in inches. And Victor Wembanyama is giving you 22 statistical impressions per inch, whereas some of the other guys that I looked at trying to find some smaller guys out here, like Scoot Henderson, just 11 or 12 statistical impressions per inch. Brandon Miller, 16 statistical impressions per inch. These guys, their inch to impressions ratio, not hitting on the numbers. I don't care
Yeah.
that he's 7'4". I will take his height to the production.
And look, Pods isn't going to put up a lot of a diverse range of statistics, but definitely is a guy that's having a positive impact on a team that is trying to go somewhere and
Yeah.
doing it while being a whole foot shorter than Wimby.
This draft has been interesting because while it's been like a good draft, you've had a lot of guys who showed up and contributed. Like Wemby was kind of the only guy that's shown up and been like, I will be a all-star. None of the other guys, you know,
Yeah, I
could
mean,
could Jaime be an all-star? Maybe. Could Miller be an all-star? Maybe. But Wemby
yeah,
will be an all-star.
yeah. And I mean, didn't we kind of feel like that coming into the season? Like Scoot was the other guy, but we did say talking about Scoot, with us and with Pablo Escobar when we had him on, is like point guards take time, and
Yeah.
so he's not a guy that's going to come in and straight away be awesome. He's going to come in and struggle, have his struggles, which he has clearly done. Um, and so Wemby was sort of the one guy that we were thinking could come in and right away be elite. Some people made the case for Brandon Miller. I didn't really like him coming into the draft. Um, and then Scoot was the other guy that I did like, but as a point guard on a
Mhm.
really bad team as a rookie was going to struggle. And so that is true that he is the only rookie that's um, shown clear signs of being an elite player. But we did kind of feel that coming into the season.
Yeah. Yeah. It just is what it is. Are both per minute and cumulative Wemby, or do you have someone else in one of those two categories?
But with Chet, cumulative, he
Okay.
is. I feel like the difference between him and Wemby overall isn't huge. Like it is there. I went with Wemby, but I feel like there's a decent case to be made that Chet could compete with him. And Chet has played more games and more minutes, so I went with Chet for cumulative.
He has played more games and more minutes. Wemby has more total points, more total blocks, more total steals, more total assists, and more total rebounds, despite playing in 7 fewer games and
Nice.
300 fewer minutes.
Hey, a lot of Chet's value comes on his defensive impact that doesn't show up in the box score. And so his amount of positions where he's had a defensive impact is greater than Wemby's. And offensive, the amount of offensive positions he's had where he's provided great floor spacing and impact without scoring or even touching the ball. He has more of those instances than Wemby.
I'm checking numbers here. He has defended more field goals than Wemby. Darn it. I was really hoping that I was going to get another total in Wemby's favor here. But no, defended field goal attempts, 1,068 for Chet, 911 for Wemby, according to NBA.com. So, uh, have you given me anybody other than Chet or Wemby for any of these?
I give you pods.
Okay, Pods. Pods was your guy. And then by age, did you have someone
Mhm.
else other than Wemby?
I went with Wemby, but I do just want to shout out the fact that Gigi Jackson was born in December 2004. Like that's an incredibly young guy. And then the other one that you could look at is um, Vasilij Micic, who is
Hmm.
almost 30, um, and has had some pretty decent minutes since he's got into Charlotte. Didn't get a lot of PT with OKC just because he's playing behind Shea. It doesn't really fit into their play style. But I think has proven to be a NBA caliber player as a rookie and at 30 years old.
That he actually probably would be a better case than my guy for my unconventional pick. And my unconventional pick, I went again with Duop Reith because he is an older guy who is making his way in the NBA. And I feel like with with the draft picks, you have the expectation versus results, and Wemby is actually living up to the expectation. But then
Mm,
you've got the guys who you have no expectation for, and they
yeah,
exceed the results. It's
yeah,
not like
yeah,
my
yeah.
Duop Reith
Duop
case
Reith's
of,
expectation was to be in China, and he's playing decent minutes in the NBA.
yeah, he's I think they actually did sign him to a more long-term deal after this year, or in the middle of this year. They gave him an extension of some sorts. Um, but like he's going to be in the NBA for the next couple of years, and that
Mm.
went from signed a contract with Portland, got waived by Portland, signed a two-way with Portland, And then February 16th, they got that converted to a regular contract. That's how close he was to not being in the NBA. Is they signed him, cut him, signed him to a two-way. Could have cut him at any point, and he earned it. And for Rookie of the Year, expectations matter. That's my two-up briefcase.
I like it. My unconventional case, and I think you're going to hate it. My pick is I'll lay the foundation first. When we do our top player rankings, one thing that I tend to weight more than what you do or what you know any of the other our other friends and colleagues who have done these rankings with us is the ability to just fit in on really good playoff teams.
Mm,
A guy that you could imagine throw him into the Celtics, throw him into the Nuggets, throw him into any of these championship contenders. A guy that every team would benefit from. Um, and the best rookies this year, looking at Wemby, looking at Chet, maybe looking at Brandon Miller, are guys who I think would be exposed because of a lack of maybe defensive IQ, because of a lack of um, defensive rebounding in the case of Wembanyama and Chet, um, because of being guys who are built like giraffes and so will be attacked one on one in isolation when it gets down to that last 2 minutes of a playoff game. Um, the only guy in the rookie class I could imagine being in a closing five of a really good team in the playoffs, fourth quarter, last 2 minutes, is Jaime Jaquez because of his ability to just fit in and play winning basketball. And so my unconventional case is the guy who every championship team would actually most want when the cards are down is Jaime Jaquez.
I like it. I tried to figure out a way to get him in here, but it's just like the Victor domination has been so
Yeah.
great. And I say this as someone who a month ago was like, nah, Chet's Rookie of the Year. Victor may get there. Victor will be the better prospect.
Mhm.
But it's Chet. And maybe that was 2 months ago, but like
Yeah.
I wasn't this bought in, and it's just the case has become 100% Victor at this point. There's no real case for anyone else. So
Yeah.
it was kind of a stretch to find someone else to put in there.
Yeah. I was with you. I really like the fact that Chet was having a real tangible impact to a really good team. Um, but since then, Wemby has come out and won 7 of these 11 categories, even with me trying to stretch to put other guys in.
Yeah. Can I read you my 11 candidates for Sixth Man of the Year?
Yeah, let's go.
Oh, and I forgot to do the wall change. Man, I've done messed up here. I had I had the Grant Hill for Rookie of the Year. I have the
Mm,
Jordan and the LeBron ready, but
mm,
got distracted in. But all right, Sixth Man of the Year, they're candidates. I do not have any jersey wall changes for them here, but standard Malik Monk, best player, best team, Al Horford. Also, the Celtics have the best bench per net rating in the NBA.
nice.
Um, the best player, I went with a colloquial best player here, Russell Westbrook. Look, may just be what people consider to be the best, most notable player coming off the bench. Uh, most skilled, I personally went with Bogdan Bogdanovic. Which I love the versatility in his game. I love when he comes in, how he can pass, play make. The whole team, the flow just gets better with him out there.
Mm,
Uh,
nice.
carrying the team, Malik Monk. He does the most for the Kings out of all the bench players. Pound for pound and inch for inch, I went with Cole Anthony. He's just kind of the best of the small guys out there. Um, cumulative, Malik Monk again, one of the highest outputs of anybody who's just played limited starting games. Um, I considered for it it's Andre Drummond, but there's a huge gap in his starter versus bench splits.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
like all of his big games have pretty much come as a starter, and so his bench numbers just not impressive. Um, in the per minutes, I divided primarily bench guys' entire statistical output by the minutes per game, and it gave me Dayron Sharp. So shout
What the
out
hell?
Rutha. Hey, Dayron gets in there for 15 minutes a night, and he puts
And
up
then he
7
goes all out.
points and 7 rebounds. Yeah, he's out there to make an impact. He's not out
I
there to
like
make
it.
friends. Um, by age, I went for Al Horford. Just dude's old and is
Yeah.
still providing a fair amount of stuff. You could also do Westbrook here, but it just felt
Yeah.
like.
I think Al Horford's older and has been the better player, so I like it.
And then my unconventional pick is a guy who probably should be in this conversation, but the case for him is that he has not started a game. It is Naz Reid, who has played 64 games without starting one. That is the most games played without a start this season.
Yeah, I mean that's a good case. I mean, a lot of these guys, you know, go back to like the old Jamal Crawford
Hmm.
type of thing where they're like playing 60 games and they're starting like 20 of them.
Hmm.
And when they start, their role changes and they um, really bolster their numbers. Even like Al Horford, who's been, I think, one of the top three overall um, 6 men of the year. Like, if you look at his starting versus bench, looks like there actually is a big difference in box score production. And so I think I do like the case of here's a guy who actually does all of his damage as a 6 man. This is a
Hmm.
pure 6 man.
Which, to be fair, Malik Monk also has not started a game yet, and so this could become a Malik Monk case pretty quickly if Nas gets a starting nod now with Karl Anthony Towns injured. But for the moment, he has played 64 games coming off the bench as more than anyone else without a start.
Nice.
Well, Dylan, any closing thoughts for the week?
No, do you think this exercise has changed your mind at all about who you were considering for these awards?
Absolutely not. It will be Victor Wembanyama. It will be Malik Monk. It will be Nikola Jokic. Um, I don't know. DPOY should be probably be Rudy Gobert. I think thinking about defense is an interesting one because I've never thought about like someone carrying the team on defense or like the pound for pound best defender. That one I think was the most fun for me,
Hmm,
but no, you shouldn't.
yeah.
You should just choose the guy that you believe is whatever of these categories is the best for you. Uh, Probably the most skilled, best player, some combination of most skilled, best player, and best player, best team. Like wherever they rank in that category, that's probably where you should pick your guys.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, take us home.
All right. Hey, do you want to plug your TikTok? You're yet to be created TikTok or your Letterbox account. Where can the people find you?
On TikTok at Press B-ball operations, or is it ops?
I
I'll
think
get
it's
back to you on that.
all right. You can
Oh
find
yeah,
me, Nate.
it's yeah, yeah, yeah. Pres.bball combos, I think it is, which is of
You can,
course a ingenious play on prisoner basketball operations.
I like it. You can find me, Nate underscore Hoops Temple. You can email us, hoopstemple@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Should have
Thanks
kept
for
it simple.
listening. Uh, have a good week.